on page 50 in our studies. Everybody have your booklets there and turned to page 50. And I'm just totally disorganized, see. We'll just hope that we don't have any technical difficulties here. Looks like this is going to work. And I'll jump on here and get the scripture up. Simple technology here. Okay, so we're Matthew 9:7 is our next. Malachi. Well, if I can find out where we're at. Malachi 2. There we go. Matthew 19:7. All right. All right, so we're on page number 50 on our third lesson here on the subject of divorce, what the Bible has to say about it. We dealt with introduction, how bad of a problem divorce is in this world today. We talked about what Jesus' answer was concerning divorce and how it is not God's plan that a marriage would break up in divorce. And then we talked last week about what God therefore hath, or what therefore God hath joined together, let not man put asunder. And then this week we're looking at what some would call the exception clause, or well, I don't know if we're actually going to get that far, but we'll see. We're going to look at why did Moses then command, and we're going to talk about that here in Matthew chapter 19, verse 7. They say unto him, why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement and put her away? So the Pharisees drew Christ's attention to the Old Testament teaching on divorce, in particular the passage here in Deuteronomy chapter 24, which says, when a man hath taken a wife and married her, and it come to pass that she find no favor in his eyes, because he hath found some uncleanness in her, then let him write her a bill of divorcement, and give it in her hand, and send her out of his house. And when she is departed out of his house, she may go and be married, she may go and be another man's wife. And if the latter husband hate her, and write her a bill of divorcement, and give it in her hand, and sendeth her out of his house, or if the latter husband die, which took her to be his wife, her former husband, which sent her away, may not take her again to be his wife after that she is defiled, for that is abomination before the Lord, and thou shalt not cause the land to sin, which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance. So that's what they were referring back to. They're saying, well, why then did Moses command that we could do this? So to understand this passage, it is essential to see, based on Christ's reply in Matthew 19:8, which we'll look at here. It says, he saith unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffered you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. It says that it is essential. It says to understand this passage, it is essential to see that there is a difference between a command and a concession by God. Here the Lord is not instituting divorce. Rather, he is regulating it. Divorce is never a prescribed solution for marital problems. The Old Testament premise for divorce. So this is when he's dealing with this, he's regulating, not saying you need to divorce or you should. He's regulating it. That's never, again, as he says, it's not a solution for marital problems. So in the Old Testament, the act of the wife, he would find some, as verse 1 said, what? Uncleanness. He'd find some uncleanness in her. Now this means a shame or disgrace, or uncleanness also meaning, yeah, well, we'll get into it. Sorry, we talk about it. I don't want to go too far. don't want to explain before it's supposed to be explained. So number two, the attitude of the husband. He says in verse number 2 that the man would have, or the man might have what toward his wife? Hatred toward his wife. Presumably this would result from an inability to forgive or reconcile. Then the question then becomes exactly what is this uncleanness? See, here we're talking about it. So is it unchastity? Well, Deuteronomy 22 verses 13 through 21 talks about what happens when there is unchastity. If a man take a wife and go in unto her and hate her, by the way, this is talking about what the Old Testament premise here is talking about. You know, this isn't necessarily how it applies today. He's going to, obviously, the Lord gave us the guidelines there. But if a man take a wife and go in unto her and hate her and give occasions of speech against her and bring it up and bring up an evil name upon her and say, I took this woman and when I came to her, I found her not a maid. That meaning that she was not a virgin. Okay. It says, then shall the father of the damsel and her mother take and bring forth the tokens of the damsel's virginity unto the elders of the city in the gate. And the damsel's father shall say unto the elders, I gave my daughter unto this man to wife, and he hateth her. And lo, he hath given occasions of speech against her, saying, I found not thy daughter to be a maid, and yet these are the tokens of my daughter's virginity. And they shall spread the cloth before the elders of the city, and the elders of that city shall take that man and chastise him. And they shall immerse him in 100 shekels of silver, to charge him that, and give them unto the father of the damsel, not submerse. Immerse is, they're going to charge him this. Give them unto the father of the damsel, because he hath brought up an evil name upon the virgin of Israel, and she shall be his wife. He may not put her away all of his days. But if this thing be true, and the tokens of virginity be not found for the damsel, then they shall bring out the damsel to the door of her father's house, and the men of her city shall stone her with stones, that she die, because she hath wrought folly in Israel to play the whore in her father's house. So shalt thou put evil away from among you. Pretty serious offense, premarital relations that are supposed to be in the marital relationship. Pretty serious offense. We're going to ask the question at the end of these here of whether or not these are the uncleanness. First, we're going to look at it. We're just going to look at each one. Deuteronomy 22 verses 22 through 24. Adultery. If a man be found lying with a woman married to an husband, then they shall both of them die. Both the man that lay with the woman and the woman. So shalt thou put away evil from Israel. By the way, I'm going to pause here. The woman taken with the adultery, where Jesus said, go and sin no more. Remember that whole thing where he said, he that is without sin, cast the first stone. He wasn't saying that to say she's okay because all of you guys sin too. One key factor, they said, we caught her in the act of adultery. Question, where was the man? He wasn't there. It says both of them, not just the woman. And when he said, whichever of you is without sin, cast the first stone, he was specifically talking about that sin, because those men would get away with it and they would have the women killed for it. Context, a little bit of historical context there. Both the man and the woman were supposed to be there. There's two other things about that passage as well. One, it was illegal for the Jews to put someone to death without the permission of the Romans at that time. So if Jesus said, kill her, that's what the law says, then he would be going against the Roman law. But if he said, you can't kill her because you have to ask the Romans, then it would be construed that he's giving allegiance to the Romans and not to the law of God. And so they were trying to trap him to get him to say one or the other. And instead, he threw that out because their whole situation was flawed. They didn't even have the man there. And so very wisely, he pointed out, hey, which of you, whosoever of you is without sin, cast the first stone. That's, so anyways, we'll go on. If a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto a husband, and a man find her in the city and lie with her, then ye shall bring them both of them, or then shall you bring them both out unto the gate of that city, and ye shall stone them with stones that they die. The damsel, because she cried not, being in the city, and the man, because he hath humbled his neighbor's wife, so shalt thou put away evil from among you. And then in Leviticus chapter 20, verse 10, it says, and the man that committeth adultery with another man's wife, even he that committeth adultery with his neighbor's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. So the solution for that problem was not divorce, it was death. Not by the husband, but by the civil authorities. It was the death penalty. If you're like busted in that area, you're dead. That's it. Life's over. You're caught, it's over. That's a big deal. That's the Old Testament law. Now, verses 25 through 27 deals with rape. But if a man find a betrothed damsel in the field, and the man force her and lie with her, and then the man only that lie with her shall die. But unto the damsel thou shalt do nothing. There is in the damsel no sin worthy of death. For as when a man riseth against his neighbor and slayeth him, even so is this matter. You guys catch that? The Bible says that rape is the same as murder. Even so is this matter. We're talking about a guy like with somebody that he's not supposed to be marrying, or he in this particular case we're talking about a woman who's betrothed to another, and this guy rapes her. It says, for as when a man riseth against his neighbor and slayeth him, even so is this matter. For he found her in the field, and the betrothed damsel cried, and there was none to save her. Then the other question, or the other next point here, Leviticus 20 verses 11 and 12 deals with incest. It says, and the man that lieth with his father's wife hath uncovered his father's uncleanness, or his father's nakedness. Both of them shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. And if a man lie with his daughter-in-law, both of them shall surely be put to death. They have wrought confusion. Their blood shall be upon them. And then sodomy, Leviticus 20 verse 13 says, if a man also lie with mankind as he lieth with womankind, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. Then bestiality is dealt with in Leviticus 20 verse 15 and 16. And if a man lie with a beast, he shall surely be put to death, and ye shall slay the beast. And if a woman approach unto any beast and lie down thereto, thou shalt kill the woman and the beast. They surely shall be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. So, is that the uncleanness that the Bible's talking about for divorce in that Old Testament context? The answer is no. You turn the page and you see the answer there. It's no. The answer is no. These are sins that were worthy of death. These were the grounds for these sins were death, not divorce. Furthermore, the penalty for fornication was marriage without the possibility of divorce. Look at this here. When it came to fornication, Deuteronomy chapter 22 verses 28 through 29 If a man find a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed, so she's not engaged to another guy, and lay hold on her and lie with her, and they be found, then the man that lie with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he hath humbled her. He shall not put her away all his days. Means like if that happened, like they had premarital fornication and so forth, the prescription for that was they get married and cannot get divorced. It says he cannot put her away all of his days. I think that's like the only situation where it actually says that, like where there's absolutely no allowance for that. Well, in other cases there were, but not for that one. It is this question as to what constitutes uncleanness that resulted in the long-standing debate between the rabbinical schools prompting the Pharisees to ask our Lord, is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? They were asking if a man could put away his wife pretty much for any reason. It seems this type of uncleanness is related somewhat to perception. She find no favor in his eyes, because in such cases the divorce was permitted, the divorcee was permitted to remarry. Well, let's look at letter B here. The Old Testament premise. Now we're going to look at the Old Testament procedure. There were 3 steps to implementing a divorce given in Deuteronomy chapter 24, verses 1 and 3. 1 and 3 or 1 through 3. But we'll look at 1 and 3 here. It says, when a man hath taken a wife and married her, and it come to pass that she find no favor in his eyes, because he hath found some uncleanness in her, let him write a bill of divorcement and give it in her hand and send her out of his house. And if the latter husband hate her, this is dealing with the next step, and write her a bill of divorcement and giveth it in her hand and sendeth her out of his house. And if the latter husband die, which he took which took her to be his wife, and it goes on that next verse. But the point that we're trying to get here is step number 1 was he was to give a written bill of divorcement. Sorry, I need to make sure that I don't miss anything I forgot about grabbing this other one. So that a written bill of divorcement was to be prepared. Perhaps this feature was designed to eliminate any hasty action, giving the husband time to think or, quote, cool off. The document was to be placed in the wife's, in her hand. That, it's not face, it's hand. In her hand. It's interesting that, like, even now when people serve divorce orders, a lot in some states, it has to be proven that the other spouse received it in their hand. And I believe this is actually where they got the precedent that it's not like just they send it off, and if they don't respond, then well, they must have meant that it's okay. No, it had to be given to him in their hand. And then the third step was the wife was to be sent from a man's house. Note, although this passage speaks only of a husband putting away his wife, the New Testament, by New Testament times, at least according to Mark. Oh, by the way, that reminds me. When I was preaching in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, I made a statement that the Bible did not allow for the wife to put away the husband. However, in Mark chapter 10, verses 11 and 12, I find that it says in verse 12, and if a woman shall put away her husband. So it says that both happen. Old Testament law, that was the way it went. It really just spoke of the man putting away his wife. But it's recognized also that a woman puts away her husband. So I made the statement that there was no allowance in the Bible for a woman to put away her husband, and I was wrong. So I just want to make sure that I cleared that up. But what's that? Someone watched the video and told me that I said that. They said, why'd you say that? I said, what do you mean? They said, have you considered this passage? And they actually pointed at this one. I was like, oh, you're right. I'm wrong. So if you watched 1 Corinthians 7, or if you were all here, that's the correction of it there. So letter C here, the Old Testament prohibitions in divorce. We're going to try to get through all this before our time's up. But Old Testament prohibitions in divorce, according to Deuteronomy 24 verse 2, which we've read twice now, remarriage was permitted. According to Deuteronomy 24 verse 4, you don't? Wait a minute. Oh, it's all caps on this one. Oh, see, well, you could have told me. It's right there. It's the former husband. Mine has blanks, but yours doesn't. They just tell you. The former husband could not remarry his ex-wife once she had remarried, even if she was now, quote, free. No doubt this prohibition was given to prevent marriage further degenerating into legal wife swapping. And then number 3 here, according to Leviticus 21 verses 1 and 7, nope. We'll read Leviticus 21, 1 and 7. And the Lord said unto Moses, speak unto the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say unto them, there shall none be defiled for the dead among his people. They shall not take a wife that is a whore or profane, neither shall they take a woman put away from her husband, for he is holy unto his God. So a priest could not marry a divorced woman. The reason for this was that he was verse 4, he was a chief. Not an Indian chief, but a chief. Do I even have verse 4 up here? Yeah, I do. But he shall not defile himself, being a chief man among his people, to profane himself. The chief man among his people, those in positions of leadership were to exemplify integrity in marriage. See also Leviticus 21 verse 14, which says, a widow and a divorced woman, or profane, or an harlot, these shall he not take, but he shall take a virgin of his own people to wife. So it covers the requirement of the high priest. So letter D here, two unusual Old Testament cases of divorce. This is interesting because sometimes people bring this up and say, well, what about this? Jeremiah chapter 3. Here the Lord uses marriage and divorce to illustrate his relationship with his people Israel. Okay. Letter A, the Lord is married, and I just put in the verses. Hopefully you read Jeremiah chapter 3, but I just put in the verses that apply to the questions here. The Lord is, I already told you the answer. The Lord is married to Israel. Verse 14 there says, turn, O backsliding children, saith the Lord, for I am married unto you, and I will take you one of a city and two of a family, and I will bring you to Zion. That's interesting. I didn't fill in that blank. Israel was, let's see here. Oh, I skipped. Let's see here. So Israel is the wife of the Lord. This is not an espousal, it says. And then Israel was guilty of spiritual adultery. Verse 8 says, and I saw when for all the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, I had put her away and given her a bill of divorcement, yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, but went and played the harlot also. And the Lord begs his estranged wife to return. That's one I didn't have filled in. Return. In verse 1 it says verse 1H, which is like the way along there, but we'll just look at it. They say if a man put away his wife, and she go from him and become another man's, shall he return unto her again? Shall not that land be greatly polluted? But thou hast played the harlot with many lovers, yet return again to me, saith the Lord. So when all Israel shall be saved, and as mentioned in Romans chapter 11, verse 26, at the time of Christ's return to earth, Zechariah 12, 7 through 10, chapter 13, verses 1, 6, 8, 9, chapter 14, verses 1 through 4, and verse 9 and 16. I'm not going to read all of those, but they're all right there in the thing there. If you're at home, you can pull that up and go through that. Hopefully you guys already have. But those are the passages that talk about the Lord's return. The Lord's wife will have been restored to him, verses 8 or 16 through 18 there. So that's one unusual case of divorce there. And then the next unusual case of divorce, which we'll quickly deal with here, and then we'll stop there and go on to part 4 next week for the rest of that. But Ezra chapter 10, this incident took place in Jerusalem among the post-exilic Jews during a time of national repentance. Letter A here, many Jews confessed they had taken strange wives or heathen wives. In verse 2, it says, and Shechaniah, the son of Jehiel, one of the sons of Elam, answered and said unto Ezra, we have trespassed against our God and have taken strange wives of the people of the land. Yet now there is hope in Israel concerning this thing. And letter B here says, Ezra commanded the people to separate from these wives. Verse 11 says, now therefore make confession. Make confession unto the Lord God of your fathers, and do his pleasure, and separate yourselves from the people of the land and from the strange wives. And then letter C here says, as difficult as this was, the people did it. Their collocation was, be of good courage and do it, in verse 4 there. These divorces were accomplished according to the law and took considerable time. Verse 13 there, and it says, and compare verse 9. We'll just take a quick peek at that. It says, the people are many, and it is time, and it is a time of much rain, and we're not able to stand without. Neither is there work of one day or two, for we are many that have transgressed in this thing. And then verse 9, it says, then all the men of Judah and Benjamin gathered themselves together unto Jerusalem within 3 days. It was the ninth month and the 20th day of the month, and all the people sat in the street of the house of God, trembling because of this matter, for the great rain. It's interesting. It took like a long time to do all that. And then in verse 17 it says, and they made an end with all the men that had taken strange wives by the first day of the first month. So think about that. It was the 9th month and the 20th day, and it took them until the first day of the first month. That's like months. Yeah. Well, depending on what kind of year it was. If it's a leap year for the Jewish calendar, a leap year actually throws another month in. They have leap years, I think, every 7th and 14th year. They don't do like us, like every 4th year we add a day. Theirs is every 7th and 14th year. They throw a whole month in there. It's like an extra month. It does actually work. They're actually like behind on the number. They're CE, or no, it's like 57 something or another from creation, is what their number is on from their calendar. And ours would be, if we used our calendar to figure that, we're a little over 6,000. So, but the reason it works that way is their month is a lunar month. So it's roughly 28 days. So it goes from the new moon to the new moon. So you got 28 days. So, you know, their month is like the length of February every month. So you obviously lose, you know, for ours, we're a solar month or solar year. And so we got 365 days. For them, they've got, you know, 28 times 12. That's a year for them. It's like a 28-day month. And it's based on the lunar cycle, not the sun. So that's why anyways, it might be 12 months or it might be 13 months, depending on what year, if it's the 7th or the 14th year. And they have this cycle of when they do this extra month. I don't know it perfectly how that leap month works, but I do know that they add an extra month whenever it's like a leap year to catch up so that the months aren't all out of whack on the solar cycle. So interesting. So anyways, it's neat to look into. So this indicates that the wives and the children involved were provided for there you know, during that time. And then note, it says the Bible does not say whether any of the offending Jews later remarried. It doesn't say one way or the other. This passage offers some guidance for those who labor in gospel or labor in the gospel among Mormons or in nations where polygamy is practiced, among Muslims and so forth. So when somebody says, well, what do I do? I've got, you know, 6 wives. I'm only supposed to have one. Well, hard answer. Yeah, that's a tough. This passage offers some guidance, but it doesn't say which one you keep, and I don't know that eeny, meeny, miny, mo would be the best answer. So, any questions or comments on all that? There's some interesting stuff. We looked at some Old Testament, the background here for what we're going to talk about next, and in fact, there's even more background next. Actually, we're going to talk about the hardness of their hearts, and then we'll talk about the exception, the quote unquote exception clause. So any questions on what we've talked about so far?